Today I am answering your questions. Hello and welcome to episode 164 of Explore Your Enthusiasm. The last Q&A episode was so popular that I thought I'd do it again. So I asked for questions on my Instagram feed. I'm Tara Swiger on Instagram, and I asked my patrons what questions they had. So if you want to ask your question on the next Q&A episode of the podcast, make sure you're following me at I'm Tara Swiger on Instagram. Or you can become a patron of the podcast and support the podcast with as little as $1 a month. I always feel like PBS when I say that. But you can find that at Patreon, patreon.com/Tara Swiger, TARASWIGER. And the first plan is just $1. And at $2, you get to start getting input on my podcast. And then you can see all the benefits of the other levels. But I always answer my patrons' questions first. So first up, Terry Cooley asks, what suggestions do you have for traveling and keeping up with business? I recently traveled to visit family and it really threw me off my game. In regular 9-to-5 work, there are structures to help me get back on track when I return to work. I'm very new at this handmade venture and I've learned a few things just by having this happen. Now, I'd like to hear what you do to help yourself. Well, this question is very timely because I am recording this 2 or 3 weeks before the podcast comes out because I'm traveling to visit my family in Oregon for about 10 days, then going to Seattle to visit a few friends. So when you listen to this, I am back in town, but I have just been out of town. So I obviously have systems like pre-recording the podcast, knowing what all the steps are of everything I need to do in order to get things out the door. Because I'm not a handmade business, it's a little bit different for me than it is for all of you. But I've actually put together a whole class with another teacher who's a awesome pattern designer, Stacy Trock of Fresh Stitches. She took maternity leave a few years ago, so we put together a class about how to take a leave in your business. So we really aim it at taking like a longer trip or recovering from surgery or having a baby or needing to take a break for mental health reasons, any of that. You can find it at taraswiger.com/leave, but everything we say there applies to any break in your business. And in fact, 90% of the class is what I do just to have a sustainable business that lets me take time off, even a short amount of time. So even, a weekend away to, drive 2 hours to see a friend. Like, all of that stuff applies. It's all about creating systems, then systematizing, making checklists, getting rid of the stuff you don't need to do. That's what we cover in that class. It's at taraswiger.com/leave. Now, I've also talked about this a couple times on my podcast in episode 33, which you can find at taraswiger.com/podcast33, or however you're listening to this, scroll back to episode 33. I have an episode about permission to take time off, that you're allowed to take time off in your business. And in episode 135, which you'll find at taraswiger.com/podcast135. It is a how to get back to work after taking a break. I did that one after the Christmas holidays. So I talk about how to get back into the swing of things after you've been gone. And then I wrote a post years ago, 2014, I think, called What It Takes to Go on Vacation. And I have linked that up in the show notes. So you can find that however you're viewing the show notes, or at taraswiger.com/podcast164. And it's a long post about what it takes for me to be able to go on vacation. At the time I had a handmade business and I wrote about that. So those are some links to where I've talked about this extensively. Also in my class, I actually walk you through it. So it's not that helpful just to hear what I do, but it's helpful to really apply it to your own business. And that's what we do in the class with a lot of worksheets and questions for you to think about in your own business for creating systems. You're not alone, Terry. By the way, a lot of people are asking this question because the summer's coming up and you're going on family trips. Also, this comes up a lot during the holidays. So the more you can systematize this now, the easier it'll be in future summers and future holidays. So Sarah, whose name is Imagined Landscapes on Instagram, says, I'm transitioning to a full-time knitting design business, woohoo, after nearly 2 decades of homeschooling. First of all, congratulations on getting that far. with your children. I find myself craving coworkers, or at least regular adult company in my business. Internet groups aren't enough, possibly because I spent the homeschooling years also mostly isolated and getting support through message boards. Any ideas how to experience stimulating adult company? Well, I don't know about stimulating adult company, but I can tell you about getting company because this has been something I'm exploring in my own business. And I started talking about wanting to do this 2 years ago, and I'm actually just now doing it. The first thing I can tell you is to go to classes. Go to yoga classes, go to art classes, go to pottery classes, figure out what you would like to do and go to classes. You will meet people at the classes. Also, make yourself say hello, how are you, what's up, to at least 2 people at the classes. And so that's kind of one set of things. To go along with that, figuring out where to go to classes and who to invite for a coffee. One of the things I found super useful is to look on Instagram at the geotags and first of all, start using your own local geotag. So for me, that's Johnson City, Tennessee. I then look at people who are using that tag. A lot of them are college students and people drinking and partying. I skip over them and I just look for people who seem interesting. Also, you can do a geotag at a specific place like if you were at the comic book shop and you want to find other people who've been to the comic book shop. If the shop itself doesn't have a hashtag, which is the first thing, go to the geotag. So when you post a picture on Instagram, you can choose your location. If you choose that location, you can then click on it and see everybody else who's been there, who posted a picture, who chose to tag themselves. Instagram makes this even easier now on the Explore page. You can explore like your town and see who's there. This is a really, really great way of pre-meeting people. So I have pre-met and basically followed and commented on 2 to 3 accounts of women that I thought I would really like. One of them ended up being a yoga teacher. So I made myself go to her yoga class and then I introduced myself and she didn't have that many followers. So she re-followed me and she knew who I was. And then we started messaging, hey, let's get a cup of coffee. Because she could see what I was doing and I could see what she was doing and I could see that I would like her. So we got a cup of coffee. We're like fast friends, spent 2 hours talking, and then we're making other plans to do things together. So heartily recommend like interneting with people before you pre-meet them, and Instagram makes that pretty easy. Also the class idea, go to classes, talk to people, tell people I'm self-employed and I'm actually looking to see more adults. You'd be surprised at how many other women will go, oh my gosh, I am stuck at home with my kids and I want to see more people too. Or, oh my gosh, I'm self-employed and I just need another business buddy. So many people end up saying that to me. The third thing, so there's classes, there's Instagram stalking, in which you actually reach out in person, then you go like meet up with them in person. And then the third thing I'd say is in those internet groups you're in, ask who's local and go to things that they're doing. So whenever I have a meetup in a town and people come, they make friends and often their friend lives close to them. So like I have a bunch of people in the Bay Area. Different collections of them meet up for coffee or just to see each other's work or just to get to know each other. Sometimes they turn into friendships. Sometimes it's just a really great 2-hour coffee date and then they don't see each other again for another 6 months. So go to meetups of the people you like. You can always go to the website meetup.org, I think, and see what meetups are going on in your town. I've done that and I've never found a group I was that into, but then again, I live in a small town. Even if you live in a small town, you'll find people via Instagram. It's just amazing. The other thing is, co-working spaces. So even in my small town, we have a co-working space. It's pretty expensive. It's about half of what I pay to rent my house, so I haven't rented a space there. But they do have free drop-in days. I would go drop in on those days. Sit down with your computer, get a cup of coffee, say hi to people. I think what you're looking for is a combination of friends, like that you can meet and go out for coffee with, and probably also just being around adults. And the whole co-working space is a way to be around adults without necessarily needing them to be your best friend. Also, contact your current friends. Make dates with your current friends that live nearby, and follow up with people who you've met once or twice and then haven't talked to. I have found one of my best local friends we were watching The Walking Dead at another friend's house because we didn't have cable. We did it for a couple seasons, and they invited this one girl. We like immediately clicked and then followed each other on Facebook and then kind of never got together. And so then she just texted me and said, hey, we always said we wanted to get a coffee. We should get a coffee. I couldn't do it then, but I followed up. And almost every adult friend I've made this last year, and I think I've made 4 or 5 new people that I could like meet up for coffee with kind of anytime, it's because we hounded each other. This is something I want to say. As an adult, you're busy. You have your growing kids. They might also. You have your business. They might also. So you have to hound people. Don't think of it as hounding. Think of it as people wanting to see you and just being busy. So like Brandy and I texted back and forth like at least 5 different proposed dates and times that always fell through or we canceled. Also, I'm trying to befriend my local librarian. We keep making dates and then having to cancel. So instead of taking it like, oh my God, they hate me, assume they're just busy and they're an adult and they've got their own things going on. So follow up, which you're reminding me I need to follow up with my librarian. Sarah is watching live via Instagram, and she said, partly it's that I crave unpredictability. Everything is very samey. Yes. So unpredictability, go to a place where people are working. I find that coffee shops, people tend to be in their own like bubble of working. But if you go to a co-working space, people are probably more chatty. I hope that helps. But really the main key to making friends in adulthood, which I wish I would have known this a decade ago, but it's following up. It's like, oh, you want to get a coffee? Okay, when? And then if they don't get back to you, like, hey, still want to get a coffee? And then if they don't get back to you, you can leave them alone. But if they say yes, and you just can't find a date, or you find a date and they cancel, follow up again. They like 100% of the time, if they said they want to go have a coffee with you, assume that's true and that they just got busy. So next question is by Triple N Acres. Or Triple N Acres. I love your podcast. I've learned so much already. As for my question, I heard you mention often that one needs to know his people. I probably say her people, but you were probably a him. If I am just in the searching info for a potential new business, how do I find those people? How do I determine who they are, where they are, and what they like without giving away my business just yet? Or should I talk about my idea and see where it goes? So there's actually 2 questions here. The first question is, how do you find your people? The second question is, should I keep my business idea secret? So here's how you find your people. Short version. There are other podcast episodes I've done about this, finding your right people. If you search that in my podcast or my website, you'll find more episodes. But the short version is think about why they're buying what you sell. Who is the person who has that need? And then what else do they do? And what do they need before they buy your thing? So, you're buying hand spun yarn, you're a knitter, you're a crocheter. What else are you buying? Well, you're probably in a yarn shop. So my people are probably in yarn shops. Or they're reading the online magazine Knitty. So my people are probably there. They're on Ravelry, they're in forums, probably forums for knitters of hand spun yarn. No matter what your business is, you have a comic book shop, your people are people who buy comics, right? You have a jewelry business, your people are people who wear jewelry. So whatever your thing is, there's someone who needs it, and there's probably a place that already sells it. That's not to get discouraged, that's to realize you could go to that place and learn more about those people. Okay? They probably use hashtags. You can search that hashtag and find more about them, follow them, talk to them, ask them. Now, you can do all of this without telling anyone your idea. But I don't know why you wouldn't tell people your idea. Because, like, gone are the days of you hiding your idea and springing it on the world. Unless you're an inventor. If you're an inventor, I don't know, you've got a different setup. You might want to keep it hidden until you get your patent. But if you're not an inventor and you're any other kind of service-based or product-based business, telling people about it is going to get them excited. And what you would really love to have while you're doing this research is be collecting people who are interested And the only way they're going to give you their info or follow you on Instagram or give you their email address is if they know what it is you're going to tell them about. So start telling them now. And so I wouldn't like necessarily give people your idea. Just tell them what you're going to do and let them sign up so that you have some people to launch it to. Next up, question from VT Craft Tours. Love the podcast and have been listening about 1 year. Well, thanks. Also, the podcast has been around 3 years, so go back and listen to past episodes. They say, recently tried to launch a big new program and thought I did all the right things. Advertised to my right people for several months, did a newsletter list to collect names pre-launch, hyped up the launch and got other program partners to hype it too, even appeared on a podcast with a large established listenership of my right people, and nothing. No signups, not even a question or comment. How do I move forward? I still want to see this project or something similar take off, but I don't know how to develop a plan where I have no idea what went wrong or why people didn't sign up. Other than surveying the very small, under 25 email list, what can I do to understand what kind of program would get folks interested? Thanks for a great podcast that always teaches me something important about doing business. Well, thanks for your nice comments, VT Craft Wars. Here's the thing I'm going to point out first, is if you got only 25 people signed up on the list and you offer craft tours, which are big, when you say programs, I went and I looked at your site, they're like tours of places. They're like events that people are not inexpensive. I don't know. I didn't look at your website, but I'm guessing if they're events, that requires people to invest money and time and to have those dates free. So the first thing is if it didn't do well, it might just be that. It might be that you didn't have a big enough pool to have enough people there who had the money and the date free. 90% of time with events, that's your problem. That you need to find 2 people who have a specific date free. You probably need to talk to 100 or 200 people. That's just how our schedules are. Also, those people have to have the date free, be interested in exactly what you're doing, and have the money to spend on it. And in a program like yours, they probably need a big lead up. So they probably need time to think it over. So if the thing didn't make any sales the first day it launched, no problem. How long did you give them? And then the next question is, did you follow up with them? So of those 25 people, you launched it, and then did you follow up? You talk about hyping it pre-launch, collecting names pre-launch. What about after you launched it? Most of the programs I know and the events that I know that sell well are ones that announce it, give a bonus to people who sign up right away, and then continue to talk about it for weeks, sometimes even months, and then remind people of the deadline of when they need to join, maybe to get an early bird bonus, and then remind people of the actual deadline. And that's how they get people in the door. So maybe some of those pieces were missing. What I want you to do, and what I always tell my students to do when they have a good launch, is write down a list of literally everything you did. Write down a list of what program partners you worked with and what they did specifically. Write down a list of what you did, how many Instagram posts, how many emails did you send? And then look, okay, is there a time when I didn't talk about this when I could? And also, what else could I have asked people to do more? And it might be an issue that your list was just too small. 25 people is just not that many people, especially if they're not pre-qualified. So say, given your name, I'm going to guess that you do tours in the New England area. Let me open up your account. I'm going to guess that you're in Vermont and you do things in Vermont. So if all 25 people on your list live in Tennessee, then they're not actually people that were ever going to sign up. So it's something to keep in mind. And this is true for all of you who are listening. If you sell something that requires some expendable income, but all the people on your list don't have an expendable income, then it doesn't matter how big your list is, right? If I have a list full of people who want information about doing their taxes, then it doesn't matter when I launch my Map Your Business book, it's not going to do well because it's not tax-based. So it's something to keep in mind. I'm going to look. Yes, so specialized tours in the Green Mountains of Vermont is what VT Craft Tours does. So that's the thing to keep in mind. You need to have specific audience that can come or is in Vermont. Okay, I'm just looking. So I think that just based on your Instagram, I think you need to talk about the thing every day until it's full or it's closed. Don't give up on it too early. Make sure people know the deadline date and announce the deadline date. It looks like the podcast you're on is for people, or is based at least in New England, so perhaps I have a lot of New England audience. I think, though, if this was your first program, you need to offer it again and again and again. For most event people, they find that their first events don't do well at all, and then they build up an audience of people who are coming to them exactly for that. So you really need to keep going and keep offering it, keep growing your list, and every launch, keep track of what you do, track what works, track what gets the actual enrollments or the registrations, and then do the bits that work, add in new bits you're experimenting with, and keep going. But it's a process. So don't be upset that your first program didn't do well. You're just starting out. That's totally okay. And then I had a recent episode on launching. I think it was episode 161. So re-listen to that and do more things in your next launch. Do everything you did and more things, and get your program partners to do more things, and realize that at this stage, you're probably building your list so that you can actually sell some, but that it might be a while before you're selling enough or you have a big enough list to sell any. I know that's not super exciting news, but that's how it works. It's a slow build, especially when you have a thing that has a specific date and a specific place people have to travel to. That's just a much bigger ask of people. So it requires more trust, like you being around longer, and it requires a bigger commitment from them. So it's going to take them a while to get to the point where they can make that commitment with you. Now, Christian Bookwifery asked me a really good question about how I share content on all of my platforms and why I use all of those different platforms. I'm going to save this for an upcoming episode of the podcast because it's a really big question. I haven't talked about this before, in part because I don't think it's as useful for you to know what I do as for you to know what you want to do. But she gives some good reasons why she wants to hear about it. So I'm going to go on and do this in an upcoming episode, but it would just take me way too long in this episode. So stay tuned. It'll be coming up next. Leanna in Stitches asks, what are your thoughts on switching to an Instagram business profile as opposed to using a personal profile for small business owners? I was considering switching until I read an article about how converting your IG profile to business profile may limit your organic reach because Facebook altered their newsfeed algorithm so users can see more of what they want. This limited the reach of business pages versus personal pages, forcing users to pay if they wanted their content shown. People then reason that since Facebook acquired IG and have been toying with IG's feed algorithm, presumably so people can see more of what they want, that Instagram may go down this route too. That being said, do you think the benefit of IG's business tools outweighs these issues? Thanks for making such a wonderful podcast. Well, thank you, Leanna. I hope I'm saying your name right. So what Leanna is asking is, in case you guys don't know, you have the option in your Instagram profile. If you go in to edit your profile, you can switch to a business account. I think it's in your settings. If you do this, you will need to attach your Instagram profile to a Facebook business page. So first, you need to have a page for your business. Then you go on and switch it. When you switch it, you get stats. You get to find out what posts are getting high engagement, what posts have higher reach, meaning they're seeing more of your followers. They're being seen by more of your followers. You also get even stats on your stories, and you get a really handy profile, which has like a contact button. And it'll either be your email, your phone number, or directions to your place. So I always tell businesses this. Well, wait, let me explain a little bit more about what Leanna's saying. So because Facebook wants everybody who goes to Facebook to spend hours scrolling to their feed, they depress business pages posts because most people don't go to Facebook to see what businesses are saying. They go to see what their friends are saying. So you will see more content by the friends and family you connect with and the businesses that you interact with. This is a good place to say. When I did my survey last January, people said, I never see your posts on Instagram and Facebook. The reason is because although you followed me, you then didn't interact anymore. If you want to see more posts from me, if you're wondering like, why didn't I see that post where Tara asked for questions to get on her podcast, then you need to go and like my posts and comment on my posts, because both Instagram and Facebook, yes, they're owned by the same people, they use an algorithm to look at who is Sarah interacting with. Okay, Sarah must want to see their stuff because she's interacting with them, so I'm going to show her more of that. This is why when you get in a heated political debate with somebody on Facebook, you then see more of their crap you disagree with because you interacted with it. So you ignore the stuff you don't want to see and like and comment on the stuff you do want to see. Does that make sense? As opposed to trying to game the system by not setting up a business account when you really are a business, what I want you to focus on instead is getting engagement and reach by connecting with people and getting them to connect with your posts, getting them to engage. One of the best ways to do this is to ask a question. Like I did in this Q&A episode, I got a lot more comments. And what that does is it tells Facebook, who owns both Facebook and Instagram, so it applies across both platforms. It tells them, she gets a lot of engagement. Show her next post to more people as well. That's what I want you to do. Ask questions, reply to comments, then follow your followers and comment on them and talk to them and engage when you use a hashtag engage. That is a better strategy than hoping that if you use a personal account, Instagram won't depress you in results and will still show you. No matter what kind of account you have, the more you engage, the better engagement you're going to get. Now, I like the stats that I get, and I like that people can one-click email me, and I like that I have a business account, so for me it's worth it. I recommend people, especially if you have a bricks and mortar shop or you really you need to look legitimate in order to earn trust, use a business account. And when I was talking about this with Instagram Live, they asked me, what are the stats that you use the most often? Like, why do you like the stats? And the stats I use the most often are to look at the posts that got the biggest in reach first. And let's back up. The reason to use the stats is to learn what works for you and your audience, so that you know what your audience likes to see and you can do more of that. So use those stats to see that. I look at reach and I see which posts have the best reach, and then I look at those posts. Do they have hashtags on them? What hashtags do they have? Are they a picture of my feet? Why do those pictures do so well? I used to look at, before my cats passed away, cat photos always did better than dog photos. I don't know why, but if you want to grow your Instagram, ignore your dogs and feature your cats. That's my little extra tip of advice for you. So look at the stats of what has the best reach, and then I also look at engagement. What are the stats? What are the pictures that are getting the most comments and likes? And then I actually, it shows them in a grid, and I click on the photo and I look at what I asked and what I did. And then you take that knowledge and you do more of that. So when I look at the stats, all I'm trying to do is not beat myself up for past posts that did bad, but teach myself what to do going forward. If you use your own stats in that way, you won't need to take another class or ask someone else what you should post. You'll know what works best. Another thing I look at, I'm okay if my engagement in terms of likes and comments were down, if instead the call to action was a website click and I can see my website clicks went up. So you really want to keep in mind, what are you using the tool for? What is your goal for the tool? What are you sending people to do? If you send people to listen to the podcast episode by clicking the link in my profile, they're not going to stick around and comment and heart it up. They're going to go click the link in your profile, hopefully. So that might have lower reach and engagement, but if your website clicks went up, it's a win. So that is what I think about stats and worrying about your Facebook profile, and that's really it. Use a business profile because you can learn so much more than if you don't have one. Okay, so that's it for the questions that came in. Like I said, I got a really good question from Christiane, and I will answer that in an upcoming episode. If you want to get your question answered, you can either become a patron at patreon.com/TaraSwiger, or Follow me on Instagram, and the next time I do one of those Q&A posts, make sure that you leave your question. Thanks so much for listening, and I wish you an enthusiastic, answer-filled day.